This podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not substitute for professional medical advice. Please seek a medical professional or healthcare provider if you're seeking any medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Thanks, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
This is regular. Look at the modeling. We got merch.
I know we got merch.
So we're announcing it.
Cute.
Look at it. I will, of course, put our Etsy shop because it's through Etsy because that's what I know what to do. So Etsy shop for right now until maybe hopefully we grow a little bit more to have our own storefront. For right now, it's Etsy, and I will go ahead and link it underneath wherever it is that you are listening or watching this from. And I hope you guys like it. We have t-shirts, we have hoodies, both zip up and not zip up. We have tumblers. I'm working on some caps. I'm working on some more stuff, a lot more stuff in there. So
awesome. And I was wearing one of the hoodies, super comfortable. The only reason I'm not wearing it right now is because I'm hot.
Miami, it's hot.
It's hot like Miami.
Yeah, it doesn't matter that it's September. No. That doesn't mean anything here. So
the whole entire world is having like cooler temperatures.
I know, man.
I'm literally here like the skin is burning my face.
Right?
The sun is burning my face.
The skin is burning.
The skin on my face is burning from the sun.
Yeah. And dude, I've been seeing it all over threads, all over Instagram. Everybody's like, "Oh, there's like a nice crisp
in the morning
air." Yeah. It's like 50s in the mornings down. I'm like,
I'm in a steam bath the whole day.
Exactly. You walk in and out of the car, done, like sweating. But
that's... I'm like power walking to the car, and I'm like, ow, the sun is burning.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. It's honestly ridiculous. But anyways, check our merch.
I know. We really, really, really would appreciate any purchase on there. It helps out the podcast.
It really does.
And if you, they get a code, right?
Yeah. If you purchase something, obviously you get a discount code with your purchase. And then also if you're our wonderful Patreon subscribers, which we have 2 new ones. Thank you guys. But you also get a discount code on Patreon. Just go to the Patreon. You're going to see it there. I think, it's like 10 or 15%. I got to verify because that's, I did it a couple of weeks ago now. So anyways, but yeah, Patreon. Hold on. It was, yes. Thank you, Jessica. And thank you, Tony.
Woo! Thanks, guys.
Thank you guys for joining. And today we got a pretty cool episode. You have brought up this idea, which is really interesting. It's in the news every other week.
This is not a trend, right?
It's more serious,
just more awareness.
Absolutely.
So
and it's needed.
It's definitely needed.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of taboo around this. Today we're talking about surrogacy. So I feel that there's a lot of taboo around that, and it's frowned upon if you need to have a surrogate or a surrogacy,
right,
to be able to have a baby.
It's very polarizing.
Yeah, it is.
It's either like there's some people that look down on it, or there's some people that look really highly to it,
Yes.
So, and we're gonna talk about the facts, right? What is it? Why would you need it? Why wouldn't you need it? Or just the whole medical side of it, and then you guys make your own conclusions on it and stuff. But that's what we're here for. Let's go ahead and start, Doc.
Let's do it. So what is surrogacy? Surrogacy is a process where a woman, known as the surrogate, agrees to carry and give birth to a child for someone else or a couple who cannot have their own child. So this arrangement can come about for various reasons, such as medical issues that prevent a woman from carrying a pregnancy, or in cases where the same-sex male couple wants to have a child. There's 2 main types of surrogacy, traditional and gestational. In traditional surrogacy, the surrogate's own egg is used, making her the biological mother of the child. In contrast, Gestational surrogacy, which I think is what mostly everyone is more
Right.
common or more aware of. Gestational surrogacy involves implanting an embryo created using the egg and sperm from the intended parents or donors, meaning the surrogate has no genetic ties to the baby. You're literally just carrying the baby through
Right.
pregnancy.
Yeah, that's the one that's mostly on the tabloids and whatever that
Exactly.
people talk about most.
Exactly. It could be pretty complex and an emotional journey. It can involve legal agreements and careful planning to ensure that all parties' rights and responsibilities are clear as day.
Very important.
It's a way for people to grow their families when other options might not be available, and it often requires a deep level of trust, communication between the surrogate and the intended parents.
Huge.
This is so emotional. There's just emotional ties to everything.
That's why I think it's such a topic of conversation.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to involve so much emotion into it.
Yes.
That it's rough.
I know someone that just went through surrogacy and they just have their beautiful baby boy. And she was so outward
Really?
and honest about her experience, about not, because she had her first baby. She had a couple complications after that first baby that led her to not being able to conceive again. And it was just so sad,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It was sad,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because you saw how much she wanted it,
Right.
and she couldn't, and she did everything possible until she finally made the decision, and she was so proud of her decision.
Yeah.
And she outwardly expressed her frustrations with everything, and she documented all of her experience through surrogacy. There were things that I didn't even not know existed just because obviously I've not been in that situation.
Right.
But there are companies that dedicate themselves
Yes.
to matching you with surrogates.
Yes. We're briefly going to talk about it, very briefly.
Not only are there companies, there are specific interviews and everything to make sure that it's not just, hey, yeah, you're carrying
Exactly.
a baby, which I feel that some places could probably be like that.
And there's even people civilly amongst each other just do that.
Just doing that exactly without anyone in between, without a third party.
Right.
But it was so nice to see her including the first time she met, the first time that her firstborn and the surrogate's child were also playing, connections that they developed. Their newborn, they took maternity photos together.
Yeah.
So it was just a beautiful thing that I said to myself, you have to have such an open mind because you are not doing things in the norm. And that's okay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I applaud anyone that has gone through that because I think that there's a certain judginess about it.
yeah.
And I think that the people are tired of hearing someone be like, oh, you poor thing, like you had to do surrogacy. So some people choose to do that.
Exactly.
Like there are models and there are stars and celebrities and other people that aren't celebrities, but they choose that they do not want to have that risk
Exactly.
or whatever it is that they choose.
It's a very personal choice.
It's a very personal choice.
It really is.
And I'm so happy that things are becoming a little bit more mainstream, or at least that there's more resources out there.
Yeah, and people are listening to other people like this, mostly because the social media has given that platform of being able to share your story. So then you see more stories like this that it kind of opens your worldview on like, it doesn't have to be taboo. It doesn't have to be like what I heard this other person say or their opinion on it. It's look at this whole story, you know? So that's a good thing about it, in my opinion. But, you know. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about the history of surrogacy because there is a history, you know, behind it. And it's like pretty interesting. So it stretches back all the way to ancient times, evolving significantly through centuries. So let's talk a little bit about just an overview about it from ancient times to the 20th century, right? So surrogacy has its roots on ancient civilizations. References to the practice can be found in religious texts and ancient laws, such as those from all the way to Babylon. In these early forms, surrogacy was often a solution for infertility, though it looked quite different from modern practices, you know? So in the biblical era, for instance, the Bible contains one of the earliest known references of surrogacy in the book of Genesis. There's a story of Abraham and Sarah, which were unable to conceive. Sarah suggested that Abraham have a child with her handmaid Hagar. I think it's Hagar or Hagar, right? As a form of surrogacy. So you could see this is not like a new
Yeah.
Anyway, so then jump to the Middle Ages and to early modern period. During these times, informal surrogacy arrangements continued, often involving a man fathering a child with another woman if his wife was unable to conceive. However, these practices were not legally recognized and were often kept secret, which you hear about like in all the rulers of like England or whatever, like Henry VIII, how many, all those things. But anyway. Then you jumping over to the 19th century, as medical knowledge advanced, so did understanding of reproduction. However, surrogacy remained largely informal and unregulated throughout this period. And then now, more towards the modern times, so in the early 1900s, we saw significant advances in reproductive medicine, laying the groundwork for modern surrogacy. However, it wasn't until the latter half of the century that surrogacy, as we know it today, began to take shape. So mid to late 20th century, the development of in vitro fertilization or IVF in the 1970s revolutionized the field of reproductive medicine. This technology paved the way for gestational surrogacy, where the surrogate is not genetically related to the child that she carries, which is sometimes a preference and sometimes what some couples are looking for, And then in 1976, the first formal surrogacy agreement was drawn up in the United States. This marked the beginning of surrogacy as a legally recognized practice, though it remained controversial and largely unregulated. The 1980s saw several high-profile surrogacy cases that brought the practice into the public light and sparked legal and ethical debates. These cases led to the development of more comprehensive laws and regulations surrounding surrogacy in many countries.
So I can't imagine like Hagar.
Yeah.
Like Hagar is just like
minding her business,
cleaning, and then just they come into the room and they're like, "Hey, my husband should just get you pregnant."
Have you seen The Handmaid's Tale?
No, I haven't seen it, and I know I need to see it. Everyone tells me I need to see it.
Damn it, Eva, you gotta see it.
I know.
It's so good. It's hard. It's rough.
I know. I don't know if I can see that kind of stuff.
You can because you're gonna have to get sucked into it because it's so you have to.
I'll try.
You got to.
I don't know. It's just like the whole entire thing of like,
I know, but it's incredible. It's such a good show. It like you just get
I know everyone loves that
and the
TV show.
actors are phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like it's just the whole story behind it, how it's written, how it just plays out.
I can't
so
imagine.
good.
And then, going through that whole entire pregnancy and then having your baby just like stripped from you. I mean, that's obviously from
back in the biblical times,
right? I'm not talking about now.
Very different now. And
yes.
At least, in the legal, ethical sense.
Yes, exactly. So there's a lot of ethics
Big
that
time.
We'll
talk a little bit about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And, again.
And with it comes the
laws. It can be very polarizing sometimes.
Huge.
But I'm just thinking about like Hagar.
I know.
Like brushing her hair or something.
Yeah.
And then just automatically being.
She was her handmaid. Exactly. She was probably brushing her hair. And then all of a sudden she's like, I need my husband to get you pregnant. She must have been like.
Yes. Excuse me. That's not in my job description.
What?
Excuse me. But anyways, I mean, who knows? I didn't know Hagar. Yeah, exactly. I didn't know Hagar personally, but I'm not sure if she was a poor thing. But who knows? Anyway,
I don't know, but that's rough.
All right,
and you could only imagine how many times that must have happened back then. I mean, come on.
I'm sure.
Yeah, and just in the royals, it's probably just to cover up the controversies behind all that. Like, oh my gosh.
I mean, there were royals that didn't even breastfeed their own babies.
Oh, for sure.
So,
that happened forever.
Yeah.
That was like. It was something beneath them for the mom to be the one to breastfeed.
Yeah,
which
exactly.
is bonkers.
So then the people that would breastfeed didn't even have enough breast milk for their own kids.
Yes.
So
it's a lot.
We've come a long way in ethics.
We have,
thankfully.
Yeah, thank God.
Okay, so let's talk about how common surrogacy is.
Yeah.
We'll talk about global infertility rates.
Yeah.
So infertility is a significant global health issue. It's affected about 48 million couples and 186 million individuals worldwide. That's a lot of people. This widespread challenge has contributed to the increased use of surrogacy and other assisted reproductive technologies.
Yeah, like we said, IVF, all
Yeah,
those things.
IVF, and there's a lot more than what you need to do before you even get to IVF. But Another thing is the historical context about it. So surrogacy has been practiced, like Julie said, since the ancient times, with historical references found, I mean, like
Even
we said,
in the
like
Bible.
in the Bible, so religious texts, ancient laws,
Yeah.
you know, just like she said, all the way back to Babylon era.
Bible. Yeah.
Yeah, which is crazy to even
It
think about
is.
because of how long ago that was. And again, this long history indicates that surrogacy has been a solution for centuries.
Yeah.
Now we'll talk a little bit about current trends. So the practice of surrogacy has grown significantly, particularly in countries where it's legally and economically viable. For instance, in India, legalizing commercial surrogacy in 2002, although estimating its exact prevalence remains pretty challenging.
I mean, it's hard to really figure that number out.
Exactly. And especially if they're not doing it through certain
Agencies or whatever it is. Yeah, absolutely.
overall, surrogacy is not the most common method of family building. Obviously, but it does play a crucial role in many individuals and couples facing infertility and other reproductive challenges. So its prevalence is influenced by legal frameworks, societal attitudes, and also pretty much availability of medical resources.
Yeah.
Which is just crazy to think.
Yeah.
You know, it's so crazy because I've never been there and I've never been in that situation. But however, I can empathize with people that have really struggled with infertility.
Right.
To make a decision to have a surrogate, that's a huge decision.
Yeah.
It's not an easy one for anyone, regardless if you've done the IUIs, the IVFs, the hormone injections or anything, or you haven't done that. It's just still a very difficult decision because, again, societal implications.
Yeah. And it's making sure also your communication with the surrogacy. Are you getting the right surrogate? Where there's so many things at play.
Yeah.
So many things because you're trusting somebody that you potentially, in cases of going to an agency, right? I'm not talking about cases of somebody and then they're willing to do that for you. That's a whole different ballgame. I'm not talking about you go to an agency like a lot of people do, at least these days, to keep it ethical and to keep it like within laws. You go to an agency and they match you up with the surrogate or whatever. That in itself is like a whole mental thing that you got to go through as a parent, that you have to meet this person you don't know anything about. You're trusting them with creating your child. You know, it's so many like mental hurdles that you got to like go through that I can't even fathom it. Like, you know, it's a
mental
hard thing.
hurdles and legal hurdles. So it's a lot of hurdles together.
Yeah.
See, so surrogacy laws vary greatly around the world, making it really complex and a confusing topic. Actually, there was a lot of people when I was a resident that they would come from Europe to do surrogacy here because I guess the laws were very different over there.
Exactly.
In some countries, surrogacy is fully legal and regulated, while in others it's banned or it doesn't exist or it's like a very gray area. And that's scary. I mean, it's a scary thing to do. And I don't want to use words that are trigger words, right? So I'm not trying to be ignorant, but it's already such a big decision for both sides, right? To be a surrogate and to decide on surrogacy to someone to carry your baby. So I can't imagine like having gray areas. It's like, it's already.
And then on top of that, you got to worry about the country that you're in.
Exactly.
Are you going to be prosecuted for it?
Yes.
Like,
and I do remember having a couple cases where they were from out of the country and they did surrogacy here. When asked like, why, if you live over there, and they would just say it's very complicated over there.
Well, we're going to go into it.
Yeah. So just like an example, countries like Switzerland, Germany, Spain, France, Greece, and Norway prohibit commercial surrogacy, meaning that surrogates cannot be paid beyond covering reasonable expenses. On the other hand, countries such as India, Ukraine have positioned themselves as destinations for commercial surrogacy, actively promoting it as a service. So they are actively out there like this is an option. Right?
Exactly. You have companies that are dedicated to that, full-on businesses.
Yeah.
Just centered around.
And in the United States, it presents like a unique case where there is no national law on surrogacy. Instead, each state has its own regulations. Surprise, it's the US. Everything is like that.
Yeah.
Some states embrace commercial surrogacy while others ban it completely. This patchwork of laws can lead to significant challenges, especially in cases of international surrogacy. So, for instance, a surrogacy agreement that is legal in one country might not be recognized in another, creating legal complications for intended parents and the child. In England, for example, courts often face a dilemma of whether to recognize parenthood in cases where surrogacy arrangements do not meet the statutory requirements, balancing public policy and welfare of the child.
I can't even imagine.
Yes.
I can't even imagine. That's why I had to include that here, because it's just like, think about all these things.
Yes, I can't imagine having your baby.
Yeah.
And when you go back to the country
Then it's like they
that
don't
you
recognize
work
it.
at, that you pay taxes for and everything, they're like, well, since you didn't really have it the traditional way, we're not really going to recognize
As your child.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Overall, the legal status of surrogacy is influenced by various factors. So that can include cultural, that can include ethical and religious views, making it a deeply nuanced issue that requires really careful navigation by those involved.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So then I wanted to talk about a little bit about India, because India is like pretty much known as a destination for surrogacy, which I found fascinating when looking at all of these things. Surrogacy in India has been a complex and evolving issue shaped by both its history as a popular destination for reproductive tourism. They even have like term for it.
Reproductive tourism.
That's why it was so shocking to me. I had never heard of this.
I've never heard of that either.
And recent legislative changes aimed at regulating the practice. So a little bit of historical context, like where did this all come from? So India became a hub for surrogacy due to its relatively low costs and the availability of medical facilities. Before 2015, commercial surrogacy was legal, attracting many international intended parents. However, this led to ethical concerns, including the exploitation of surrogate mothers, who were often paid minimal amounts while surrogacy agencies profited significantly. So you see like how easily things could be just shifted and the ethics could just be completely blurred in this.
Yeah, and not only that, but yes, I understand that you are paying for services, but just remember that this is another person that can suffer complications, that can die from this.
Pregnancy is not easy.
No, it's not. And it's a really big commitment for those doing it. So I can't imagine these agencies just profiting and being like, well, we're going to give you like about 5%, but we're going to get the rest.
Yeah. So, and then in response to these issues, India has enacted several laws to regulate surrogacy. So in 2015, ban on commercial surrogacy. The Indian government banned commercial surrogacy for foreign nationals, allowing only altruistic surrogacy for Indian citizens. This means that surrogates can only be compensated for medical expenses and insurance, not for carrying the child. So then another regulation was Surrogacy Act of 2021. This act further tightened regulations, allowing surrogacy only for Indian heterosexual couples who have been married for at least 5 years and are proven to be infertile. The surrogate must be a close relative of the intended parents, and she can only be a surrogate once in her lifetime. So it seemed it went from like very, very, very commercial, very loose, and
To now
to
extremely
really regulated. Yeah. So then ethical and social considerations. The surrogacy laws in India aim to protect surrogate mothers from exploitation and ensure ethical practices. However, these regulations have also raised concern about limiting access to surrogacy for single parents and LGBTQ plus couples and international intended parents. The laws require that the surrogate mother and the intended parents navigate a complex legal framework, which includes obtaining certificates of eligibility and importance of surrogacy. So surrogacy in India has transitioned from a largely unregulated industry to one of the most stringent regulated countries aimed at protecting all parties involved. While these changes have addressed many ethical concerns, they have also restricted access to surrogacy for many potential parents, both within India and internationally. The future of surrogacy in India remains a topic of ongoing debate and legislative scrutiny. So it's like too much. Like now they went to too much, where now you have like couples that are not like the traditional quote unquote sense, and then they can't. It's not fair. It's just, it went from way wide to like too tight right now. It's crazy. And very recent. This is 2015.
I know it's not
Not very far along at all.
And to me, well, what does that mean proven like infertile. What? Like there are so many women out there that cannot conceive, and then 10 years down the road they're like, oh, surprise baby. You know?
Exactly.
So it's like, how do you really prove that? I don't know.
Yeah.
What criteria is that? Does that differ from place to place? I don't know what that means.
It's very strange.
Yeah.
They're trying way too hard to restrict it. And
Is
like
that you can't get pregnant for over a year when trying? Is it that you failed an IUI?
Well, they said it 5 years. Hold on. Sorry, where was it? Okay. Allowing altruistic. 5 years. Okay. Surrogacy only for Indian heterosexual who have been married
for 5 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then proven to be infertile. But
yeah,
proven,
so that's what I'm saying. Like, so what does
exactly
mean? Like, did you fail at getting pregnant after a year of sexual intercourse? Did you fail hormones?
Right.
Did you fail like what is that? And I feel like that could be so altered sometimes depending on who you go to.
Yeah.
You know?
So I just thought it was like a really good example of how, because it went from very loose to like really stringent. So it's a really good example of like how ethics, how cultures, how like just emotions, even like all these things could tie into this topic of surrogacy. There's so many factors into it.
Yeah.
And then when government gets involved, as we very well know that government, gets involved into medicine, and it's not a good thing. When that happens, it's like, oh boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never good. Never good. So some general ethical considerations. Sorry. All right. So surrogacy, while being a beacon of hope for a lot of aspiring parents, does come with its share of ethical dilemmas. Like everything in medicine, it can spark pretty intense debate. Now, one of the primary concerns is the potential for exploitation, particularly in cases of commercial surrogacy.
That makes sense.
Critics worry that women, especially those in economical disadvantages, might be coerced into becoming a surrogate primarily for financial gain rather than the altruism of it. So, I could see that.
Yeah.
Okay. And some of these women I don't think are coerced.
Right.
So another ethical issue revolves around the right of the surrogate.
Right.
So questions arise about her autonomy and the extent of her decision-making power during the pregnancy.
That's rough. I can't even fathom that.
Yeah.
Because we both have been pregnant.
Yeah.
We both know what pregnancy is. So then to have somebody else tell us what you got to do, what you got to eat, oh boy.
Well, I feel that if you sign up for this,
you gotta be.
You need, so I think that's why like the contracts and the legalities of like what's expected of the two parties.
Right.
And I think that's something that needs to be discussed. And I think that's why a lot of these agencies are created so you can match correctly to the surrogate that suits you. Both of you that suit each other, right?
Yeah.
But again, like if I am going to pay a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
To make sure, one, medical expenses need to be covered.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
Two, the additional cost of it, right? Because it is a risk that you're taking with your body. However, if I'm paying you, right? And you're taking this risk, right? So this is that compensation that we're talking about, but you eat shitty. Or let's say you're gestational diabetic.
Yeah.
Right? So you have diabetes during your pregnancy, but you're not taking care of yourself, then why am I paying this like really high? It just gets again, this is what we're talking about, all the ethics.
Yep.
Right? So.
And again, there's a lot of things that you shouldn't or can't eat or drink during pregnancy. So it's like.
And then I think about it on the other side, on the flip side. So what happens if you have some sort of complication with the pregnancy, right? But you have to the doctors give you their recommendations and you have to make a decision. Are you going to make the decision, obviously, to put yourself first? Okay. Or are you going to make a decision for the baby of the people that you are carrying this baby for?
That's right.
So what are you going to do?
That's so tough. Because, for instance, it may sound bleak, but it is what it is. Mostly with motherhood, parenthood, whatever. What I had explicitly told Mario, I'm like, and I didn't have any complication with my pregnancy. Everything was fine, knock on wood, throughout the whole thing. Knock on wood, everything was fine, even right before and after birth. Thank God. But I did tell Mario, because you never know. Yeah. On the day of giving birth, the most random stuff could happen. Right. And you had a fully total, normal, nothing, no complicated pregnancy. And then on the day of giving birth, something happens.
Yeah.
So I just like I made it very explicit to Mario. I'm like, look, if it comes down to something, some freak thing happens,
Yeah.
my kid goes first.
Yeah.
Forget me. Like if it comes down to that decision, like my kid first, which I know it's a personal choice. Everybody has that choice. A lot of other people say, no, we could have another kid, save them all. Again, choices, right? My choice was that I told my husband, Mario, I'm like, you save the kid, forget me. But that's our kid.
Yeah.
So what do you do in that case that this is like a business? This is a transaction. This is like, how do you see that? How are you able to separate that? You
That's
know?
what I'm saying. Or
That is so rough.
Or maybe you're there, you're ready to give birth,
Yeah.
and the doctors are kind of recommending maybe you do a C-section, but then maybe the people
Yeah.
that you're carrying the baby for are saying, well, there's always risks to a C-section, so can we try vaginal? But at the end of the day, that's you,
Yeah,
right? They're making
yeah.
a decision on you. It can get
Oof.
real choppy.
Yeah.
Real choppy.
Yeah.
It'd be so interesting to talk
To a surrogate.
to a surrogate to get their both sides, right?
Yeah,
To
yeah.
parents that have done surrogacy
100%.
and a surrogate. It'd be so interesting to be able to do that.
It really would.
Because the ethics are crazy.
They really are. And it's just like the emotional factor to it and everything. There's so many layers to this.
Yeah.
That, yeah, it would be fascinating.
Yeah. And then additionally, there's concerns of like what happens if the intended parents change their minds.
You imagine? You imagine.
Excuse me.
If you're halfway through your pregnancy, there's no abortion, there's no nothing, right? There's nothing you could do but have the child.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they're like, never mind.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
And then, or if the child is born with health issues, who bears the responsibility then? Man.
That's why you have to have everything in black and white.
Yeah, you have to have everything black and white. But it's
in
so
these
difficult
situations-
because these things are like not black and white. And
Exactly.
you need to create them to be that way.
And I'm sure that's why all these agencies exist for
Yeah.
these same reasons, because there's
100%.
so many things that could happen. And then you have to have it in black and white. You got to sign all those documents like, hey, this happens, this happens, this happens. This is a person that's responsible or not, or whatever. Who's responsible here? Like,
Yes.
those things need to be like very well laid out,
Yeah.
you know? And that's why it's such a hard decision to make on all sides.
Yeah. And then there's a matter of the child's rights too, and the identity. So in cases where a surrogate is also the biological
boy.
mother, it can lead to like really complex emotional things.
Absolutely.
Again, not every case is like this. We're just trying to shed light on the different obstacles and different views. You know, there are beautiful stories. There are not so beautiful stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I think that's just the trend in life in general.
It's life, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Mostly when we're talking about like medical things too.
Yes,
like, it's just-
exactly.
it's how it is.
but yeah, it's the ethics can get real dicey.
Hell yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so let's talk about potential psychological impacts on surrogate mothers, right? So we've been talking, sprinkling in here and there, like, you know, what are the psychological impacts on everyone involved? Like, focus it a little bit, right? At least medically.
Funnel it.
Funnel it a little bit because this is a big topic, you know? Anyway, so surrogacy can have obviously very various psychological impacts on surrogate mothers. So let's talk about that one funnel for right now. And it's important to consider these aspects with sensitivity. So here's just some of the potential psychological effects on them. So emotional attachment. That's like the first one that came into mind thinking about all of this. One of the significant challenges surrogate mothers may face is forming an emotional bond with the baby during pregnancy. This bond can make it difficult for them to part with the child after birth, leading to emotional distress. And that's very hard to like be able to separate that. Postnatal depression. So after the child is handed over to the intended parents, some surrogates may experience postnatal depression. This can be accompanied by feelings of loss, sadness, or even guilt, especially if they had formed a strong prenatal attachment to the baby. Then there's social and marital relationships. The decision to become a surrogate can also impact a woman's social and marital relationships. Surrogates might face misunderstandings or lack of support from their partners or community, which can add to their stress and their emotional burden. And then there's motivations and regret, right? So some women enter surrogacy arrangements primarily due to financial need without fully understanding the emotional complexities involved.
And risks.
Exactly.
Not just emotional
No,
things.
I know.
Risks.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about like the psychological effect on it, but like it's just like a big can of worms, you know? This can lead to regret or feelings of exploitation if later realized, the psychological toll that it takes on them. But then there's also benefits, right? So there's benefits to surrogacy. The first one that you could think of is family building. So surrogacy allows individuals or couples who cannot carry a pregnancy to have a child who is genetically related to them. This can be especially meaningful for those who have struggled with infertility or have medical conditions that prevent pregnancy. Then there's also medical safety, as Evie has reiterated, because she has, I mean, you're there in the hospital, you're like experiencing situations like that. So for women with certain health conditions, surrogacy offers a way to have a child without risking their own health through pregnancy. And then, of course, emotional fulfillment. So surrogacy can provide the joy of parenthood to those who otherwise might not experience it, potentially alleviating the emotional distress associated with infertility, right?
Yeah. Well, I can imagine a lot of people out there. Let's just say I didn't want to carry a pregnancy.
Right.
Right. I said, I don't want to go through the complications. Like I've been pregnant before and I've been through the complications, and luckily, thank God, knock on wood, I had never had any complications during my pregnancy. But let's assume that it was that situation. And let's just say I made the decision that I did not want to put my body through that again. I don't think that that's abnormal.
Right.
However, I can totally see how there are people out there, oh, but pregnancy is such a beautiful thing.
It's not beautiful for
and I would say,
everyone.
it's not beautiful for everyone.
Not at all.
Don't get me wrong. When you have the baby, you forget a lot of things, right? Because it's a big moment.
Yeah.
It's so emotional. You're vulnerable and everything.
Yeah.
And you're thanking God that you made it that point, right?
Yeah.
But the road to get there is not beautiful for everyone. I've heard women saying that they will never get pregnant again because of how bad it was. Yeah. Right? So to the point where they do tubal ligations and everything because they are certain that no one is going to convince them otherwise.
Yeah.
So it's, that fulfillment and that joy of being a parent, it's just so important to be aware that if someone wants surrogacy after they've been pregnant and everything, you should probably refrain from being like, it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's not like that sometimes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's...
And during and after.
Yes.
I
remember that I had joked about it with my husband, Mario. I was like, man, there's so many people out there that are just like, they make it seem like pregnancy, you're just floating on a lotus leaf. Yeah. You're just like one with the world.
Yeah, you're on a lily pad.
So exactly.
You're on a lily pad.
Everything is so beautiful. Like, oh my God, I'm one with, whatever. And then I'm here like huge on my freaking third trimester in July in Miami. Anything made me sweat. I was just like,
very uncomfortable at the end.
Oh my God. And I'm like, I don't know who thinks this is like wonderful, because it's not me.
Yeah.
Not me right now. Okay. I want this baby evacuated now.
And you had an uncomplicated pregnancy.
Exactly. So imagine.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
but I could just see that. I can see that someone being like, ay, pero
Of course. And that's why there's so much controversy to this topic.
Oh, but how are you going to let someone else carry your baby?
There's a lot of reasons.
I could totally see that happening.
100%. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk a little bit of like the risks. And of course, we're going to start with the medical risks. So the surrogate mother faces a lot of the usual associated risk factors, right, with pregnancy and childbirth, including potential complications. But they also have emotional challenges. So both the surrogate and the intended parents may face complex emotional situations. The surrogate might find it difficult to give up the baby after birth, while the intended parents might struggle with not carrying the pregnancy themselves. Yeah. And that's just the surface.
Yeah.
You can have the legal complexities of it as well, which Julie and I had like already mentioned.
Given examples and stuff.
Just like for example, the different laws in each country. That's just
even
one
between
thing.
states?
Yeah, and even between states, exactly.
Yeah.
You have those ethical concerns that we talked about too, about like, some people viewing surrogacy in a different light. And this can also lead to social stigma, right?
Yeah.
And then personal ethical dilemmas as well. Financial risk, so surrogacy is expensive. And there's always a risk to process that the process might not result in a successful pregnancy, right? Can you imagine? I cannot imagine the deep mind of a person that failed multiple things to get pregnant. And then finally, they made that decision to do the surrogacy. And then that didn't work out either. That is
gut-wrenching. It really is. Like I can't even. I have goosebumps thinking about it. Like I honestly do. Like
can't. Like it's like almost like you lose your breath just thinking about that. Right. And then that can also mean that it can lead to a financial loss for you. So not only did you lose your baby, right, but the finances as well. Relationship strains. So complex relationships between the surrogates, between the parents themselves, the potential egg and sperm donors can sometimes be in disagreement with things.
So much.
It's just really important to know that many of these risks can be mitigated through real careful planning, legal agreements, and support from medical professionals and counselors. I feel like this is definitely something that should have some sort of counseling.
100%.
Why did I say it like that? Counseling? Counseling. But despite all the challenges, many people find surrogacy to be super rewarding. And I know that Jules and I have been like kind of talking about the ethics and things like that because those are the things that people want to talk about mostly. But there are so many beautiful stories, like the one of my friend. I mean, every time I would see a post, it was like reading from start to finish because it was such a breath of fresh air to see the positive side of it. And I'm so happy for her, and I'm really happy for anyone that's been in that situation as well.
And that's the thing, like we gotta, at least in these topics, you gotta look at both sides. You know, you have to, in order for it to do justice to these type of topics that are so controversial. You gotta take a look at like both sides, the good and the bad. You know, you have
because we have mentioned a lot of things that could weigh up very heavily. However, like the other side of it is, as parents, you can become a parent,
right?
And then as a surrogate, you could have probably gifted the best thing for that family, that the best gift that they will ever receive in their life.
Exactly.
Which is a chance to be a parent.
Exactly.
Because that's what they wanted, and you helped them get there after maybe potential failed things, or maybe through a lot of psychological, social dilemmas.
Right.
So I can definitely see the positive side to it as well.
And even if it's financially compensated, even if it's in that case, still, you are still doing something for those people, that like for that couple, whoever it may be, that is just, I don't know, there aren't words to describe like what you're doing. Beyond the financial compensation. And that's if there's financial compensation. There's a lot of moments that it's not
financial,
you know, that it's just like an agreement between friends or family or whatever it may be.
Exactly. Imagine you had teamed up with someone that you've never met before, and it's the first time, and all of a sudden you're in a deep relationship for 9 months. And a lot of these people actually stay.
Yes, I was going to say that.
Stay together because of that crazy bond that you built with them. I can't imagine you carrying my baby for 9 months and all the things that we need to do together, doctor's appointments and all of this, and going through the birth and all these things, and then just like be like, bye. I mean, I know there's situations where that's what it is.
And to each his own. But like, you could build that bond with that person, you know? It's so easy to. You know? Like you're sharing something so big and important. But yeah, I mean, clearly, we've talked about it a bunch of times. This has always been a topic of conversation because a lot of celebrities, a lot of well-known people have been open about it, been open that they've at least explored it or done it or
maybe
whatever.
Someone in your family, maybe one of your closest friends has
100%,
done it.
100%. So then obviously there's a lot of them, a lot of celebrities that have come out and said, hey, we've done surrogacy for whatever, X, Y, and Z reasons, or it's just personal. We just want to. The one that everybody knows about is Kim Kardashian and Kanye West.
Yes.
They made it well known to everyone and all the way to the fucking Kepler belt. They found out about it, you know. And then there was also, I didn't know, Sarah Jessica Parker and her husband
I did
also.
not know that.
They welcomed 2 twins in 2009. Elton John
I did know this one, yeah.
with David Furnish. They actually used the same surrogate for the birth of both of their sons.
Oh.
So that's an example of that bond.
That bond, yeah.
Exactly what you're talking about. Well, how are you not gonna? So then there's Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban. They had their second daughter, you know, via surrogacy in 2010, Tyra Banks. So yeah, these celebrities have spoken publicly about it, you know, through their journey. They're helping to raise awareness that this isn't something that should be stigmatized, should have a taboo over
And
it,
again, just to
you know?
reiterate, we're not saying that these people were not able to conceive on their own.
No, it's just-
okay, like we're just saying that they used surrogacy. Okay.
Yeah, we don't know what their reason was, but they've at least raised awareness.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
so that's something good. And like some of the common reasons why people choose surrogacy, like we've mentioned, infertility issues, right? Then there's also medical concerns, as Evie has mentioned. Some of the common and more serious illnesses that can make pregnancy extremely risky for women, leading them to consider surrogacy, would be one, heart condition. So women with severe heart problems may face life-threatening complications during pregnancy. The added stress of carrying a baby can overburden the heart, which we know the heart has to get pumped extra.
So you basically go up in your volume.
There you go.
When you are pregnant, you more circulation, you have a human inside you.
Yeah.
So your blood volume is going to go up. So that is more load on the heart, right?
So if you have a heart problem, complication, that's an
and
issue.
not only that, but there are women that have had complications post
Birth.
delivery,
Yeah.
right? Or postpartum, sorry.
Yeah.
Postpartum complications of heart failure, right? That they never had before.
Yeah.
They never had before. I had a case of a patient. She was very young, right? So she was young, so it was like the pediatric team, but she had given birth and she developed like a electrical problem, basically like an arrhythmia after she gave birth, to the point where she had to have a defibrillator like kind of like installed. Yeah.
Holy
and
cow.
she had to wear a life vest. So
Yes, you did say that
basically
story.
that if her heart stops, it's a literal vest that will shock you back to life.
Oh my Lord.
Until she finally had her defibrillator in place.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy
Yeah.
stories.
And these are the
all
complications that, like-
So it's not even complications that you had before that may worsen. It's a
Yeah.
complication that you never had before and then happen to suffer after.
Wow. And then another example would be like severe kidney disease, which can worsen during pregnancy, potentially leading to kidney failure. This condition can also affect the baby's growth and development. So very, very, very serious. Systemic lupus and systemic lupus erythematosus.
Yeah, SLE, systemic lupus erythematosus.
Go ahead. Just read that one, please.
No, just SLE. So systemic lupus erythematosus. I don't know why. It sounds weird when you're really reading out, but SLE, right? Lupus. Everyone knows about lupus. It's an autoimmune disease, and it can basically flare up during pregnancy, increasing the risk of complications such as preeclampsia, preterm birth, and even miscarriages. Although I will say a lot of autoimmune diseases tend to calm down during pregnancy, and the reason why is because your body has a normal tendency, right? You have a new thing growing, right? So your body is actually going to calm the immune system, just in case that your immune system does not recognize your pregnancy as foreign. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So a lot of autoimmune diseases, because you have a lower immune system function,
Like response. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It actually, a lot of people have almost moments of remission, right? Of their disease because of their pregnancy.
Interesting.
So-
Which I'm sure that you could get so much research out of that, like how to try to mimic that, you know?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
But people with multiple sclerosis,
Right.
lupus, rheumatoid.
I mean, there's a bunch of them, but
Yeah. However, that's not the same for everyone, right? You
Right,
can have
right.
flare-ups during pregnancy.
Yeah.
Diabetes, which we kind of
Huge.
discussed a little
Yeah.
bit. So women
And that
can
one's
have
a lot more common.
gestational or before and then worsen, but you can have poorly controlled diabetes, and that can increase the risk. It can increase the risk during pregnancy. It can increase the baby's risk as well.
Yeah.
But you can have high blood pressure. You can have complications that affect, like kind of what I said, like mom and baby. So you have to have really strict management, and it's pretty crucial, but you may choose surrogacy to avoid these risks. You can have chronic high blood pressure, like I just said. Managing the blood pressure during pregnancy is really critical, and it can be very dangerous because you can have something called preeclampsia or eclampsia, which is a very severe complication during pregnancy for both baby and mom.
And
so
I think Kim Kardashian had one of these preeclampsia or whatever, which is one of the
really
reasons
sucks.
why. Yeah, it's scary, man.
it is very scary. It is very scary.
Preeclampsia is very scary.
You can have a convulsion, so you can have epilepsy. So while many women with epilepsy have successful pregnancies, the condition can pose risks. So especially if the seizures are not well controlled.
Yeah.
So medications used can also have potential side effects for the baby. So again,
There's so many factors.
there's so many factors,
So many.
like the desire for a biological connection,
And the legal ramifications of it all, the emotional
side of it.
Like,
So
just so much to take into consideration for it.
we try to limit this
condense
talk,
this to an
of course,
episode.
but I really feel you could have hours on end on this.
You could pick one
conversation.
of these topics for an episode each. Like,
Yeah,
easily,
exactly.
like,
Exactly.
easily.
Just like the different stages of surrogacy, I'm sure as well can be like a different topic. But anyways, we hope that you enjoyed
Yes.
surrogacy as a general topic. If there's anything that you would want us to kind of further dive into within the realm of surrogacy, just let us know.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
more than happy to take requests. We love requests.
Love it.
It really like shows the engagement that we have with our audience.
Yeah.
And it motivates us to keep going.
Yes, absolutely. I mean,
Thank you for everyone that has been
Oh my gosh.
really
I mean, you know that I love Threads and
Yes.
Instagram and everything. Like, you
everyone.
guys have
Even-
all been like
I have so
incredible.
I have so many people that I know that like on the side will tell me, "Hey, I listened to this week's episode," and it like really like warms my heart.
It really does. Like,
because you don't have to listen to us, right? But
Of
when
course.
you do, it's so nice to hear that.
just like, those kind words are always so welcomed.
and
you
even
know?
feedback. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
100%.
we are learning the ropes. Julie
Yeah.
and I did nothing related to media.
And we're
here
just,
we are.
this is an indie podcast full on. Like, there's no sponsorship involvement. There's no
Exactly.
none of that. Like, I mean, this is completely on our own, learning as we go type of situation.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
There's no marketing firm, no nothing. There's no
there's
editing
nothing.
firm. That's all in house.
It's Jules and I.
Yeah. So anything, we really appreciate it. And we appreciate you guys. Thank you for even a simple like, comment, all the things that you guys do. Thank you guys so much. Continue doing that. Continue liking and commenting and subscribing to our YouTube. Check out our Patreon. We have episodes like this, just like this, but just completely different topics on our Patreon. And of course, you would be helping out the show.
We hope you love our merch.
Exactly. Check out our merch. Links in anywhere that you are listening or watching this. You will find it in the description. I will link it there. And again, thank you guys for everything. And we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Like, comment, review us on all streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, etc.
Check us out on Instagram and TikTok at Funny Medicine Podcast. Our Gmail is at funnymedicine305@gmail.com. And remember, we are not diagnosing you.
Definitely not. Just funny stuff.
See you later, guys.